Hey everybody, and welcome to Bits of Board, where we're talking board games, miniatures, cards and dice. My name's Michael, and today we are checking out a game by the name of Dinogenics, or as you might know it as the other dinosaur-themed worker placement game to come out in recent time. Now before I get into the whole what's this game about kind of thing, I just want to share with you how this game came into my possession, because I feel like that's some important information for this particular vid, alright? The year was 2017. Dinosaur Island had just arrived on my doorstep, and I cracked the shipping box open and was immediately blinded by the 80s theme nostalgia, right? I kid you not. Well, actually, I should have been prepared. I was a Kickstarter backer and I knew exactly what was coming my way, except there's no preparation for something like that. It is full on. Pogs, fluorescent colors, everything, right? So I cracked the game and started setting up. And I continued setting up. And then I had to go buy a second dining room table so I could continue setting up, because this game is massive. But despite all that, over the next couple of weeks, I was able to get this thing to the table a bunch. I played it 2, I played it 3, I played it 4. I was even able to check out the solo side of things, of course, right? And after all that time, I found that Dinosaur Island was an absolutely great game mechanically. What Dinosaur Island kind of failed to do for me was grant that real Jurassic Park experience, right? You running your own theme park where the choices that you make and the dinosaurs that you bring in actually make a difference. Sure, I collected DNA, I built my park amenities, but it just wasn't enough to cut through the mechanics. And for me, the whole illusion, having your own dinosaur park, it fell apart. Enter Dinogenics. Now, I was aware of this game. It was up on Kickstarter around the same time as Dinosaur Island, but me in all of my wisdom, I was like, I don't need 2 dinosaur worker placement games in the collection. No. Of course, I know that was a mistake now, but having had that experience with Dinosaur Island, I thought, hey, I wonder what Dinogenics brings to the table. So I went and had a look at its state of development, and wouldn't you know it, it was open for the late backer. Yes! So I managed to secure myself a copy. Now, Dinogenics, being in my collection now, is a direct response to my experience with Dinosaur Island. It didn't quite make the cut as far as the feel of the game, mechanically sound, just didn't quite evoke the dinosaur theme park management kind of thing. So today's vid is all about finding out if Dinogenics scratches that particular itch. You ready to check this game out? We're going to start with a bit of an overview. We'll play through a couple of rounds and then we'll come on back and I will tell you just what it is I think about this game. You ready? Let's get in. Alright guys and gals, here we are all set up for a 2-player game of Dinogenics. Now just in case you haven't seen Jurassic Park, we're going to quickly go through what this game is all about, and then I'll take you through some of the rules, some of the gameplay elements that are specific to this game. Then we might play through a couple of rounds to see just how the gameplay stacks up against some other worker placement games you've played. Now in Dinogenics, players are pretty much going to be making their own amusement parks, except instead of rides and all that, they're going to be putting in real-life dinosaurs. Now this isn't any particular player's island there. Players have got their own unique islands. Well, they don't start very unique, they all start set up like that, but as players progress through the game, they're going to be buying their own attractions, researching and breeding their own dinosaurs, and reacting to events the best way they can. Now what we've got here is the main island. This is where players are going to come in and place their workers. Yes, this is a worker placement game. Each one of these areas has their own unique action, allowing players to prepare their parks for the upcoming season of guests, whether that be increasing the number of hotels that guests can stay at or expanding on the attractions. Here players will be placing their workers to develop their own islands. So let's start over there. So here's an example of a player island at the very beginning of the game. We've got their available workers at the very top of the board here, along with a couple of starting dollars. In a 2-player game, players are going to start with 4 workers with a 5th available a little later. Now on the map we have kind of two placement locations. We've got the park side of things where players can place dinosaurs or outside attractions. Here we can see we have one fenced off pen, which is perfect for the placement of our very first dinosaur in the game. Over here on the eastern side of the islands we can place our amenities, restaurants, attractions, hotels to house more guests. This is where all of the business goes on. Now every player has one starting hotel printed onto their board, and this can house 2 guests. Now at the beginning of the game traffic is a little light, so 2 rooms is probably enough. But as the game continues, the number of guests attending will rise. And guests are a really good thing because when they first rock up, they're going to give you $1 whole to play around with. Now money, as in any game, it has a number of uses and we'll see all that fairly soon, but suffice to say, having more money is better than having no money, right? So in this case, we've got 2 guests, that'd be $2 to our bank account, whoopee. But if these 2 guests actually survive the season, they're going to grant us 3 victory points per pair. The last landmark on our player boards is the dinosaur value track here, which allows players to tally up the total value of their dinosaurs at the park. At the beginning of the game, it starts at 0, but as we place more dinosaurs in the placement locations in the park, this value is going to increase. And then at the end of each season, we're going to gain victory points based on this total value. It's actually not necessary to the gameplay. You could go ahead and just count all the dinosaurs by their individual values, but it certainly does save time and allows the game to accelerate at a quicker pace. Next stop is the visitors board, and if the name doesn't give it away, this is what helps us determine the number of guests on their way to our parks. Now underneath the visitor track we've got the reputation tracks here, which help in determining player order. Basically the player with the highest reputation is going to go first. So let's say if the white player moved up to 3 reputation points there, they would then shoot ahead and be the first player. Now player order is pretty important in this game, as the player with the most reputation is going to attract the most guests. Here I've got the visitor overlay that's suitable for the 1 to 3 player marks, and we use this to keep track of a heap of information throughout the game. Here we can see that we're currently in the pre-season and we're not allowed to gain any visitors. But if we move into the first season, visitors will be distributed as normal. The player with the highest reputation, player 1, will gain 2 visitors, as will player 2, but the third player will only gain 1. We can also see that we're going to be granted 2 bonus visitors, and they'll be prioritized to the first player, but we'll see all that in action shortly. But just so you know, this track is certainly something you need to keep an eye on. Now every season players are going to be placing their workers out onto the main map here. Anything less than 4 players are actually going to be covering up some of the spaces just to tighten up the board a little bit. One of the most used placement locations is the city centre here, and this allows a worker to utilize 2 different actions. They can use the DNA market, purchasing DNA for the creation of dinosaurs. They can purchase fences to create new enclosures. They can purchase facilities, which will grant bonus points or powers, or in the case of accommodation, will allow the placement of additional visitors. Finally, a player may choose to repair a facility that might have been damaged by a rampaging dinosaur. Now, I mentioned the DNA market, and these are made up of DNA cards, and there are a lot of placement locations that actually involve interacting with these cards, or at least the deck. But let's just have a quick look at the market. This is seeded with 3 cards from the deck at the beginning of the game, and each card has a bunch of information to tell. So with the Ankylosaurus here, it tells us that we need 3 identical Ankylosaurus DNA cards to be able to place a dinosaur of this type. If we wanted to sell the card, we'd gain $3, but if we wanted to buy it, it would cost us $4. It tells us the ability of the specific dinosaur, how many victory points it'll net us every round, how many reputation points it will grant us if it lives in our park, and the minimum enclosure size for the dinosaur. Now, the DNA market provides a place for players to actually purchase these cards knowing what they are. And if a card is ever purchased, the next card will slide in and a new card will be drawn from the deck. The 2 leftmost places are purchased at the standard amount, but there is a $2 discount for the DNA card on the far right. And this represents the player's last possible chance to purchase this card, because players can sell unwanted DNA cards to the market, and when they do, they push the far right card out of the market and into the boneyard. Now the boneyard is a placement location on the map here, and it's a very powerful one, but with a fairly massive drawback as well. At the beginning of the game, the boneyard is seeded with 4 cards from the deck, and if a player was to place a worker at the boneyard, they would be able to choose one of those cards to take without paying any cost. The drawback here is that they would have to take a scandal token, which is worth -6 victory points at the end of the game. Now, while the game does offer a number of ways to get rid of these scandal tokens, it's certainly worth making sure that you've got the time to get rid of them before taking it. Alright, so let me show you the rest of the locations. We've got the farm here, which will allow players to take 3 goats from the supply. As you probably guessed, we're going to be housing a number of ferocious dinosaurs in our parks, so it helps to be able to feed them. Up at Site B, we're allowed to draw blindly 3 DNA cards, choosing one to keep and discarding the rest. It's not a very efficient way to build your hand of DNA cards, but it does help to make sure that you get the right one when you need it. Next, we've got the agency, which allows us to draw manipulation cards. Now, these cards are powerful, sort of single-use bonuses that we can play utilizing one of the other placement locations on the map. This one allows us to mess with the facilities market, and then purchasing a card. This one allows us to gain some food sources for our carnivores. There's some pretty crazy, powerful stuff in there. And what's more, if we're to place at the agency, we also get to discard one of our scandal tokens. Next, we've got the Dinogenics lab. And this is where we can cash in our sets of dinosaur DNA to actually place a dinosaur. Now, players will start the game with 3 cards drawn from the deck, so it's pretty unlikely that anyone's going to have a full set at the very beginning of the game. But at some stage, you'll luck out and you'll actually want to place them. Just got to make sure you've got the right number of cards to create the set. Throw them in the discard pile, and then you take the meeple of the dinosaur you just created and pop it somewhere in your park. Hopefully you've got the room, right? Now, having a dinosaur is super important as it controls the park's reputation. So the game pretty much encourages you to go all out in the first pre-season round to do anything you can do to get a dinosaur. But what if you can't draw the cards that you need? Well, instead of playing a complete set, a player may choose to play 3 different dinosaur DNAs to create a mutant. Now, mutants might not be as powerful as other dinosaurs, but they're certainly better than nothing. You've got to give the people what they want. Next, we've got the ferry location, which simply allows a player to gain $3. The uplink location, which allows players to actually play their manipulation cards. Site A, which allows players to blindly draw from the DNA deck. And finally, the timeshare, which grants $1 and 1 extra visitor. Now, there is one other location, but it doesn't actually offer any unique abilities. All it does is allow for a player to use an already occupied space, but it will cost them $2 to do so. The newsroom is the mechanic that allows this game to be so replayable. The breaking news deck here is made up of a sweet pile of unique events that will occur every round. At the beginning of the game, there will only be a card in the upcoming space of the newsroom, allowing players to prepare for any negative effects if there are any. This one, for example, if you play a worker to the uplink this season, gain a scandal token. Players might see this in the upcoming section and get all their uplink play out of the way early, so that when it moves to the active section, they don't need. Once the upcoming card gets moved to the active slot, we draw a new card, again foreshadowing the events of the next season. Now, what's to stop a player going all out just getting Tyrannosaurus Rexes for their park? Well, aside from the fact that T-Rex DNA is pretty hard to come by, they also need a lot of meat to be fed. See, as we can see here, the T-Rex is a carnivore and requires 2 meat per season. That means you're going to have to hit the farm pretty regularly to make the TNX a viable option for your park. But what if you can't feed him? If at any stage a dinosaur is unhappy with the way it's being treated, whether that is it's not being fed, maybe it's sharing its enclosure with another dinosaur. Or maybe the enclosure is just not big enough. Well, the dinosaur will rampage, which is bad news for the park and its guests. Both the Tyrannosaurus Rex here and the Velociraptor are going to rampage this round. The T-Rex, mainly because its pen is too small, but also because it's sharing its paddock. So we get to roll these lovely dice. Now for the T-Rex, we have to roll both these dice. Let's see what we get. Aside from knocking down our park, we get to celebrate a naive visitor. That means while the dinosaurs are getting up to their mischief, a visitor out there thought, hey, that's pretty fun, what an awesome show, and they decide to tip the player a whole $1. Now this of course is a fairly rare occurrence because there is only one of those smiley faces on the dice. But what about this evil looking dinosaur skull? That's got to be bad news, right? Yeah, it is. That means one of the dinosaurs got out and ate a visitor. And not only that, it damaged park property. Now, if the dinosaur is enclosed, that's okay. He's going to take out the closest fence that will allow him to be set free. In this case, it doesn't really matter, but it's important to know that they want to get out as quickly as possible. Let's say we now roll for our Velociraptor, and that worked out very nicely. We get the slash symbol. Well, the good news is no visitors died, but the park does still suffer a bit of damage. Now, in this case, our Velociraptor is free, which means he's going to get out and he's going to damage park property. If we've got a facility placed anywhere on the map that the Velociraptor can get to, he's going to damage it. In this case, we just flip the tile over to show its damaged side. Note that we lose any of its effects until we've repaired the facility back at the city centre. If we've got no structures, or all of our facilities are damaged, the dinosaur is going to damage the visitors centre, which is the residence printed on the map. Anytime this is damaged, the player has to take a scandal token. Finally, for every visitor lost through a dinosaur rampage, we have to take a scandal token because there's just no covering that up. Well, straight away at least. Alright, so that's probably all you need to know to get into the gameplay, so we'll play a couple of rounds of this just to see how it looks in action. We'll start in the pre-season phase and work our way through. Hopefully we'll get to see some pretty cool stuff. Who knows, maybe a dinosaur will get out. You ready? Let's jump in. Alright, let's get into it with player one. So our main focus in this early stage of the game should be to get dinosaurs, and we've got a very decent hand to start off with. 2 Stegosauruses and 1 Stegosaurus in the DNA market. That would be brilliant, except for the fact that Stegosauruses cost $4 and we've only got 3 to play around with. And not only that, these guys need a pen size of 2, so no. But we do have that raptor there who only needs 2 DNA cards to breed, and they'll cost 3, and there's 1 in the DNA market, and it's in the cheapo section, yes. So we can actually purchase this raptor for $1 single. So I'm going to go ahead and place my first marker in the city center up here. The first of my 2 actions is going to be to use the market, and I'm going to grab that raptor for just $1. Now the rest of the dinosaurs slide down, and I will not be drawing a replacement here. That's something I messed up in the initial description of the game, so just bear in mind that this is essentially a player-driven market. Now for my second action, I'm thinking I'm going to start preparing for additional dinosaurs in my park, so I'm going to spend 2 of my dollars to gain 3 fence pieces. Now I could go ahead and lay them here to gain another single unit size pen, but I want to branch out, so I'm going to build off of it still. But my aim is to be able to accommodate a dinosaur that needs a pen size 2 or more. Alright, moving into player 2's turn, and just looking at their hand, I can feel that hurt. As player 1 picked up the raptor, player 2 said goodbye to the early hopes of a raptor in their park. Now, it's a kind of an unfortunate hand. We've got 3 non-matching dinosaurs. The good news is, though, we do have a Tyrannosaurus Rex card in hand. What's floating around in the boneyard? We've got Ankylosauruses and Stegosauruses galore. I'm thinking we'll take a bit of a chance in this early part of the game, and player 2 is going to place their pawn in site A, drawing 2 DNA cards, the first of which a Brontosaurus and a Triceratops. Okay, well I'm sitting with 5 completely different dinosaurs here. Not great. Alright, well there's no mucking about here with player 1. We're going to get in and immediately build a dinosaur. So we'll place our worker in the Dinogenics lab up the top there, and we're going to cash in those 2 raptor DNA so we can place our very first dinosaur. Now raptors only need a pen size of 1, so this is pretty dang perfect for us there. All that's left is to get a food supply because these guys are going to be hungry come the end of the turn. Alright, on to player 2's turn, placing their second worker. Now I don't think I mentioned during the rules description, but players actually start with 1 manipulation card in their hand. In this case, player 2 has a wonderful card by the name of DNA Theft. Declare a dinosaur species in an opponent's park, then roll 1 die. Basically, we've got a 2 out of 3 chance of scoring a carbon copy of their dinosaur at the cost of 1 scandal token. Worst case scenario, we get to place a mutant. So I'm thinking this is going to be a pretty sweet opportunity for us to scab off player 1. So player 2 is going to head over to the uplink. We'll play that DNA Theft card, and then we're going to roll the dice. We want slashes or a smiley face. Oh, and we get the skull. Not nearly as impressive. Player 2 scores a mutant. I almost forgot. Because of our current breaking news, corporations named in crime syndicate investigation, whenever a player places a worker at the uplink, they have to take a scandal token, so I'll tuck that near the player board as well. Now I'm going to take a quick moment just to explain what's going on with these particular dinosaurs at the moment. The raptor here, he has the clever trait. During a rampage check, in addition to normal damage, we suffer 1 visitor fatality on a slash result. So basically, if we roll a slash or a dinosaur skull, we're going to have damaged property and a lost visitor. Now, what's more, we need to update a couple of tracks. So we've got the victory points tracker down the bottom left here. We're going to get 4 points for having the Velociraptor. Now, we don't actually gain these as victory points yet. We'll gain this at the end of every round, but it's a good idea to start counting those values to make that end step a little bit easier. And the last thing on this card is that we gain 2 points of reputation. And the reputation track is up here. So what we're going to do is we're going to bump our little our cube up a couple of spots. I wish I'd chosen a color that wasn't black so you could see what was going on. But these 2 points ensure that player 1 is going to remain in the first position. Now, player 2 wasn't as lucky not getting the Velociraptor out of the DNA Theft, but we did gain a mutant. Now, mutants don't have a particular card in the game for ease of access, but I can tell you right now that their special ability is kind of cool. You see, they're omnivores, so you have the option of feeding them meat at the end of every round. Now, if you feed them not 1, but 2 goats, they are going to reproduce, and you'll gain another mutant to place on the board. Now, mutants, they're kind of like the recycled dinosaurs, so they don't net you too many points throughout the board. You only gain 2 points of dinosaur value, and you actually don't gain any reputation because mutants, well, we don't really care about mutants. Well, at least not as much as the Velociraptors. So that's all we need to do to update our stuff here. Let's head back over to the board and continue playing. So we head back over to player 1. They're going to drop a worker at the farm to gain some goats. Now that they have a mouth to feed, this is going to be a super important placement location. And player 2 is going to hit the city center. Now for their first action, they're going to use the market and they are going to sell 1 of their cards. We're going to drop that Stegosaurus in, gaining $3. And then we're going to spend 6 of our $7 to pick up the Site B improvement. Now, whenever a player purchases a tile from the city centre, it is immediately replaced. So let's draw 1 from the beautiful Dinogenics bag that we've got going on here. And we have a duplicate tile, okay. That sucker costs $1 and will give 1 point of reputation to the owner. Now, this particular improvement has to be placed on the right-hand side of the board, the eastern side of the island. You can tell this because it's got a grey symbol in the bottom right. So let's just drop that down near our visitors centre here. Let's just have a quick look at the anatomy of these things. So we've got the actual abilities of the tile here. In this case, at Site B, when we draw 3 cards, we only have to place 1 back instead of 2. It costs 6, and it will grant us 1 victory point at the end of the game. So that's what's going on there. And I actually forgot to place the worker, so let me throw that over there as well. All right, players have only got 1 worker left. What do we need to do? Player 1's got the food. They've got the dinosaur. Let's grab a couple more DNA cards so we can either expand our choices for dinosaurs in the future, or at least so we can sell them to gain a couple of bucks. So we'll put our worker in the last spot at site A, draw 2 cards. This time we get a Brontosaurus and a Triceratops. Awesome. Those Brontosauruses sell for a ton. Player 2's last turn for the round. They've already got a dinosaur, but it's not great, so we should try and get in the running for at least a decent one early next round. So because we've run out of places over at Site A, we're going to have to head over to Site B. But in doing so, we can make the most of our newly gained ability. We're going to draw 3 cards, and we're going to pick 2. So we have a Brontosaurus, a Pterodactyl, and a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Well, let's keep those 2 because we already have sets of them started. And we'll discard the Pterodactyl. And that, guys, is the end of the first round. So we move into a bit of an upkeep phase. Firstly, and you can see all the steps on this handy little player aid, we've got to feed all the carnivores. Now, we've only got 1 carnivore on the board, and that's our Velociraptor here. Player 1 is going to discard 1 of their goats, and thus preventing any dinosaur rampage going on. Next, we'd have a look to see if there are any other rampages floating around. For example, if a dinosaur was not in its pen or something like that. Nothing to look out for here. Next, we'd do some visitors stuff, but we don't have visitors in this early round. So we're just going to score some victory points based on our dinosaur values. Player 1 here has a dinosaur value of 4. Player 2's got 2, so it looks like player 1's off to an early lead. As you can see, we've got some tokens up here, so black moves up to 4, white to 2. Well, I guess it's time to get into full swing of things. We're going to update the visitors track. So we slide along the cardboard overlay, and we check our visitor numbers. Player 1, the black player, is going to get 2 visitors, and so is player 2. Now, because none of our players actually expanded their visitors centers or anything like that, their accommodation, we're just going to grab 2 visitors apiece. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to take advantage of the bonus visitors this round. Looks like it's time to invest in some hotels. Now, at this stage, players will gain a small income based on the number of visitors rocking up in the park. So player 1 over here, $2. Player 2, $2 as well. And with that done, we're almost ready to move into another round of worker placement. First off, though, we've got to advance the newsroom and put a couple of other building tiles out. So starting with the newsroom, we're going to say goodbye to our active event. We can now play our workers to the uplink without suffering any negative effects, but we do gain a new event. Workers cannot be played to Site A this season. Whoa, what a great time to have that Site B upgrade. That is awesome for player 2. We would now reveal the next upcoming event. What is this? Live footage, unexplained mutations captured on film. In player order, each player must place a mutant into their park. Standard placement rules apply. All right, so we know that we're going to get some unexpected dinosaur guests. We better make sure we have the space to keep them. Now, during setup, we randomly chose 3 tiles to place out, and we're going to do the same every round. We're going to draw 3 tiles from the bag, and we're going to place them on top, creating a stack of tiles that players can purchase from. Now, you can still only purchase from the topmost tile, but it just means that you're going to have access to tiles once thought lost. Let's grab our workers back and start again. All right, so player 1's looking a bit broke except for the $2 they gain from their guests. Let's gain a bit of income. We're going to start off by heading to the city centre. And using the market, we're going to sell our Brontosaurus card, netting $5. We're going to push those cards down, adding the Brontosaurus to the end, and we're going to place the Ankylosaurus that we discarded from the market. We're going to place it in the boneyard. So I'm feeling a bit better, $5 richer. Let's spend 2 of those dollars to gain just a couple more fences, and we can finish our second enclosure. All right, 1, 2, and 3. We're going to begin another structure up the top. Maybe we should start preparing for a Tyrannosaurus, although player 1 hasn't seen any of those cards pop up just yet. Now player 2 is going to follow suit, heading to the city centre, and they're going to spend 2 of their dollars to gain some fencing as well. And with only $1 left, I think it's time to sell some stuff as well. So let's get rid, well, they're not worth much, but we'll get rid of the Triceratops. Shuffle that Stegosaurus along. Into the boneyard you go. Oh my goodness, player one lucking out here. They've got those 2 Stegosaurus cards in hand, and a 3rd DNA has just rocked up to the cheap spot. Player one heads to the city center, spends a single dollar again, what bargains, and takes the Stegosaurus into hand. Now they've still got $4 to play around with, so let's take a look at the tiles that we can take into our park. This one here, at the end of the game, you'll gain 3 victory points per carnivore in your park. That is a good one. This one, whenever you place a new dinosaur into your park for any reason, gain 2 victory points. That's pretty cool too, but a little pricey. And then over here, we are going to gain $1 every round for every hotel marker we've got. Well, I'm definitely liking the sound of that carnivore tile, so we'll take that. This one goes into the park side of things, up the top here with the goats. Yeah, they'll love that. Now, player 2 really wants to get into the city center to pick up that Brontosaurus DNA, but they can't because all of the placement locations are used. And what's worse, even if we go outsource it, we're not going to have enough money to actually purchase the Brontosaurus, even with its discount. So let's head to Site B. We're going to draw 3 cards and keep 2. Come on. You wouldn't believe it. 2 Brontosauruses there, and that's all we're going to need to place a new dinosaur. Awesome. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's starting to rain here, so I'm going to have to wrap this up pretty quickly. Player 1 off to the Dinogenics lab up the top there. We're going to cash in our 3 Stegosauruses, grab a meeple, and we're going to place it straight into the park. We have an enclosure size too, so he's going to be happy. Let's see what else happens. This one's a crowd pleaser. During the upkeep phase, gain $1. That's great. It's going to give us 3 points to our dinosaur track, and we're going to gain 2 more points of reputation. Wow, what a great dinosaur. All right, player 2's got a very similar plan. They're going to place their worker up in the Dinogenics lab as well, and they're going to cash in 4 Brontosauruses. Now, these guys are the gentle giants of the dinosaur world. Open spaces are a valid habitat, and they will rampage if they're ever placed in a pen. 5 points added to the dinosaur value, 2 points of reputation, but what's most important is that we can place this guy on any open space on our island and they will not get cranky and rampage. There we go, our Brontosaurus is going to love it up there. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points on the dinosaur track, 2 points on the rep. We're starting to close up the gap a little bit. Let's go take a look at player 1's park. Yep, things are looking pretty good. The Stegosaurus is happy. The Velociraptor's happy. He's got some food to lead us into the next season. All right, 1 more worker to be placed for each player. You know, I'm not too fussed about our other actions. I don't really have any money to do the things I want to do. So I'm going to head with my last worker to the agency, draw 2 manipulation cards, and hopefully we've got some interesting choices. We've got fresh meat, which will gain us 4 goats, or we can destroy a friendly dinosaur and gain 6 goats and 2 DNA cards. Oh, or with reinforced pens, we may place 5 free fences into the park and we can ignore the next negative rampage check result. Wow, they are insanely powerful. Well, player 2's happy to continue investing in their dinosaur DNA. Another 3 cards, 2 pterodactyls and a T-Rex. That will be our 3rd and our last DNA card needed for the T-Rex. And we may as well start on pterodactyls. So we'll take those 2 into hand. Wow, we are in for a big set of rounds coming up. All right, so that's all the workers placed. We head into the upkeep phase. We've got to feed all our carnivores. Player 1, that's you with the Velociraptor. We lose another goat. All the other dinosaurs are happy, so there's going to be no rampages. And now for the first time, we're going to return our visitors to the supply. So player 1 here has 2 visitors, so we're going to throw them back in the box. And for this pair of visitors, we're actually going to gain 3 victory points. And it's the same deal here. for player 2. Finally, we grab victory points for our dinosaurs. We've got 7 points for player 2 and 7 points for player 1. That did catch up quick. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14 points for the black player. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, we are keeping that gap nice and close. So let's grab our workers back. We'll push the visitor marker forward 1 notch. We are now in season 2. Player 1 is going to gain 3 visitors, although they've only got the space for 2, so that's a bit of a shame. Player 2, 2 visitors, that's all they've got room for. And again, none of us have room for these bonus visitors. Come on, guys, we need to get some hotels on the board. Stat! But alas, that is where we're going to leave it. I think that's about everything that you need to see, so you get a taste of what this game is like on the table. So with all that said, let's head on back to the studio, if you will, and we'll have a chat about this game and what it brings to this dinosaur park building genre that we've grown to love. See you in a sec. All right, guys and gals, there we have it. What'd you think? Now, on the surface, I think Dinogenics is a pretty standard worker placement game. It's not doing anything super special with that particular mechanic. It starts to get interesting though with the set collection, because as soon as you have a set collection game where players are drawing cards all from the same deck, I feel like luck begins to play a much larger factor in determining the winner. But in this case, I feel like Dinogenics have done a great job at making the less useful draws more useful in other ways, because yes, you can sell those cards for money and you're always going to need money, or you can swap them in to gain mutants for your park and they can become quite a lucrative strategy in certain ways throughout the game. So as far as luck being a driving factor in determining the winner, I don't think it's that strong a case. So it's good news for those that are feeling like luck is going to ruin their game. Now, the DNA cards aren't the only form of cards being drawn. We've also got those manipulation cards, which can be an absolute ton of fun. These things are super overpowered. They can gain you money, they can gain you dinosaurs, they can wreck your opponent's day. Now, I understand there are a lot of conflict-adverse players out there that don't want to ruin each other's days when playing, and that's fine because this game has an easy way to identify the conflict-heavy cards, and this allows you to remove the cards from the game, playing a bit more of a multiplayer solitaire variant of the game. Now, I don't totally recommend this way of playing unless you're one of those players, because I have a lot of fun screwing with the other players at the table, and it's quite entertaining as long as you're not taking it personally. Now, having given the game those labels, worker placement, set collection, who's actually going to enjoy this game? So I will start off by saying it's a medium weight Euro game here, and it's probably very suitable for the entry level into the Euro scene, maybe after you've seen Catan and Dominion in action. So it's a great welcoming game for those sorts of players. But if you're expecting something a little bit more meaty, something to sink your teeth into strategically, maybe not for this one, because the main strategy in this game is to do a little bit of everything and to do it well. You've got to have dinosaurs, you've got to have park amenities, and it certainly helps if you're providing a place to stay for all of the guests that are coming in, because that's going to grant you money and victory points, and these are just so important in the game that you can't leave it clear. So unlike those games that you may draw a comparison to superficially, Caverna, Agricola, stuff like that, it's not going to allow you to go out there and explore all these different methods of bringing victory points in. You've simply got to do the same things that your opponent's doing, except do them better. Now, I only mentioned Caverna and Agricola because the player boards are kind of the same thing. For those expecting similar gameplay, no. Dinogenics is doing its own thing with that sort of broad worker placement thing. So if you don't want worker placement and you're not into set collection, probably steer clear away from Dinogenics. Unless, of course, you want to see a dinosaur theme park come to life on your table, because honestly, that is the selling point. That's what's keeping it in my collection right now. Sure, I have games that would compare to it and probably surpass it in other ways, but there ain't no other games that do dinosaurs as well as this one. Because unlike Dinosaur Island, the choices you make, which dinosaurs you bring into this game, they absolutely matter. Every dinosaur has its own bearing on your park, and it's not just little stuff like what sort of size enclosure to build it, whether they're a carnivore or a herbivore. No, every single dinosaur has their little unique spin that they bring to the dinosaur keeping side of things, and I find that so interesting. I feel like that's something that Dinosaur Island missed out on achieving, yeah? Now, comparing the two games, because they're a pretty inevitable comparison, for me, I feel like Dinogenics is the lighter of the two games, but I also think it does the park management dinosaur side of things a lot better. And while Dinosaur Island is this big, vast, there's some worker placement, there's so many different phases stitched together, it's more of a mechanically sound game doing some really interesting things, but those mechanics, they're not hidden well enough behind the theme for me. Now, I've gone ahead and said that Dinogenics strategically isn't very broad, and I do bring with that just one exception, because the first couple of times I played the game, I was trying to build the park safely. I was making sure I had all of the requirements to keep the dinosaurs before I placed the dinosaurs, and I was scoring okay. I don't know how I would fare in the solo scenarios that ship with the game, but I was having this sort of cookie-cutter dinosaur park experience. But if you choose to play the odds and game that rampaging dinosaur dice, oh boy, you are going to have a lot of fun. I found that the risk versus reward is totally worth it to bring a dinosaur into the park that you can't quite take care of. Let's say you have the opportunity to place a velociraptor really early in the game, but you can't feed it. Place that dinosaur, because the reputation that you gain and the victory points that you gain over every round, they eclipse any sort of penalties you might gain from a rampaging dinosaur. Sure, someone gets eaten and you'll gain a scandal token, but that just means you've got to play a certain action to get rid of the scandal token and you're back on board. As soon as you realize that this is now a push your luck game, this opens up completely and you have a newly invigorated dinosaur theme park game to play around with. And that for me is where this one hits home. And while it's not doing anything completely new in the board gaming scene, it is a healthy reminder that you don't have to shake up the whole industry to make an impact. You just have to bring a tight and well-designed game that captures the imagination of your audience. And that is what Dinogenics achieves so damn well. Dinogenics is absolutely welcome in my collection, and I hope that you see that it's definitely worth your time at the table. If you get a chance to see this one in action, go build your own Jurassic Park, because you are going to have a fantastic time doing so. Alright guys, that is about it for this one. If you've enjoyed the review, make sure you like, comment and subscribe. Do all the things that you guys can do to help this channel grow. But other than that guys, we are done. So as always, my name is Michael, this is Bits Aboard, we'll catch you next time.